So I'm going to show you now how to knit or purl through the back loop. And so you'll often see through the back loop as abbreviated capital TBL. And what that does is twist a stitch. So if I'm going to knit through the back loop, here I've got the next stitch, and the loop just basically means the loop or stitch which is on the needle. So normally if I'm going to knit, I would take my right hand needle to the front and I'd be working with this front part of the loop or front part of the stitch, and I would go in like this. So that's a normal knit stitch. So that's a front loop, and the back loop is therefore this part of the stitch. So normally we don't deal with that, but when we're going to twist the stitch around, we do. So knitting through the back loop, I put the point of my right needle through here like that, and then I knit it, pull it back in between here and off, and that twists the stitch around, and it actually makes the knit stitch a little bit tighter. I'm going to show you again. So a normal knit stitch, we work with the front of the loop of the stitch going from the left and up through. In this one, working through the back loop or knitting through the back loop, I put my point of my needle in here, and then I knit the stitch, bring it through up there and off, and it's twisted. So again, I put the tip of my needle through the back loop here, and I knit it like that, and you can see there's a little crossover. See how the one before is just like a V, and this one it's crossed over, so it's a really tight V. So again, I knit through the back loop, knitting through the back loop of the stitch. Now if it says purl through the back loop, that's a little trickier. But again, I'm not working here, I'm going to work here. So I always have to put my yarn to the front for purling, the front of the fabric. So I do that first. So normally to purl, I would be going from right to left underneath the front loop, but I'm not going to work with this side of the loop, I'm going to work with the back side of the loop. So I have to now put it around behind the back of the stitch on the back loop. And what I'm showing you slowly, so it's a little awkward, but I pull the knitting underneath down just to create space, and then I put my stitch, you can see how I'm going to work, this is the back loop, and I put it from behind to front, and I purl it, stick it out like that, and it's a twisted purl. So again, I'm going to work with the back loop, and I'm going to put the tip of the needle, my right hand needle, in from this side, from the left side through to the right side, like that. You can see that, and purl it. So, and to do this easily, you have to use your pinching fingers on the left hand to manipulate the stitch so it's a little bit forward like that, and you've got space underneath here to get the needle underneath and through. So underneath and through. Now it looks very awkward, but you can get faster. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit faster so you can see. It's not so bad. So I'll show you again slowly. We're going to work on the back side of the stitch, so that's through the back loop, and purling. So I've got my working yarn at the front of the fabric, and I have to do this little movement here, acrobatic movement with my needle from the back of the stitch through to the front underneath and through. So back and through. So let me show you again knitting through the back loop. I put my yarn to the back side of the fabric, and this is a lot easier because I'm going from right to left. straight through like that and knitting. So I've done one twisted knit stitch. I put my yarn to the front, and now I'm going to do one knit through the back loop, purling through the back loop. And so now, sometimes you can put it in as if you're going to knit it and stretch it a bit, and then slip it through. Okay, I'll show you another purl. So I can loosen it up if it's tight for me that way. Take my needle out again, put it behind the stitch and through. So that's knitting and purling through the back loop. Basically, you do a lot more twisted knit stitch, so knitting through the back loop, than purling, and you often do it on a 1x1 twisted rib. And if you have a look at my cuff here, I've done that in a very small needles and very small wool, and that's a twisted rib, and you can see how my knit stitch is really brought together tightly, and that's what it does. It actually looks quite nice. It makes it much neater, and I've got these strips of tight knitted stitches. So here I've only twisted or knitted through the back loop and then done a normal purl stitch and knitted through the back loop of the next knit stitch and a normal purl stitch.